Good evening. Thank you for joining us for Mississippi Public Broadcasting's Learning Loss Forum. Can they catch up? My name is Felicia Davis, and I am the Division Manager of Early Childhood Education and Education Enrichment. And tonight, I have the pleasure of serving as the moderator for our discussion. We will discuss a nationwide issue and how the state of Mississippi's education system is faring during this pandemic, and what is being done to close the learning gaps created by COVID-19. To our panelists, thank you for being here and for your valuable input. Please introduce yourselves by name and work affiliation. I'll start with Mr. East.
Hey everyone, I'm Glenn East, the superintendent of the Gulfport School District. Been enjoying this position now since 2005, and I'm glad to be here with you guys tonight.
Dr. Dace.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Deborah Dace, superintendent of Greenville Public School District, and I have been in Greenville serving this position for a little over 2 years, 2019. Glad to be here.
Dr. Smith.
Good evening. I am Tinette Smith with the Mississippi Department of Education. I currently serve as the Executive Director for the Office of Elementary Education and Reading. I've been with the Mississippi Department of Education for about 8 years now, started out with literacy. So pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but definitely not least, Mrs. Jones.
Hello, everyone. I'm Erica Jones, a second grade teacher from the Hinds County School District, currently on leave, serving as the president of the Mississippi Association of Educators. So glad to be with you all tonight.
Okay, tonight we will focus on 3 areas: students, teachers, and parents. And I'd like to pose my first question to Mr. East. And that question is, what was the academic performance of your school district pre-pandemic, and what does it look like now? What has changed?
So before COVID-19, we were a school district, depend greatly on the growth of our students each year to move forward. Very strong in mathematics. Mathematics seems to be our top area, and ELA right behind that. In post-pandemic world, or in the middle of where we are now, I shouldn't say post, we struggled last year, and our gaps with our students is much greater than it has been. And so we're spending this year working to close those gaps. Definitely have some work to do due to the pandemic.
Thank you. Dr. Dace, Greenville Public School District is and was a needs improvement district when you inherited it. What has proven to be the most difficult task you faced, and has this situation improved or worsened during the pandemic?
Well, Ms. Davis, I guess I would say the most difficult task has been just truly bringing everyone together. When I arrived in Greenville Public School District, of course, the district was low performing. The district was rated an F. Because what has transpired over the last 2 years, the ratings have not changed. And so we're still a failing school district. But I think the parents and the students and educators have worked very hard. The first year I was here, of course, the efforts were really, really strong. When the pandemic hit, of course, there were new problems, and the problems were just being safe and trying to be safe. At this point, I would say that all those things started to change. We see now that we reverted a little bit, but we're coming back to that era. We're working now to make sure that our constituents trust us in this time during this pandemic. And so I think gaining that trust back again, and then really moving towards that change that's needed to change the mindset of everyone involved here. That's the only way the scores are going to improve. It takes a community. Definitely takes a village, as they say.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Smith, What would you say is at the core of MDE's conversations about learning gaps?
As I've stated before, in conversations that we've had, learning gaps to me, it is a gap in learning or unfinished learning that we have seen across the state. And I think the core that the Mississippi Department of Education, we are encouraging districts across the state to accelerate and to fill in those gaps that the students may have had. There's no way that we can go back and reteach everything that every kid has lost or missed from the inception of this pandemic. So we are providing resources and strategies, tools, and professional learning opportunities for teachers, superintendents, and communities, families, to show them how they can help plug those unfinished learning holes that students may have experienced during this unprecedented time.
Thank you for that. And Mrs. Jones, overall, how would you say teachers are doing?
So I have had an opportunity to travel throughout the state over the last 18 months, and our teachers are telling us that they are experiencing a harder year this year than they experienced on last year. So one thing that I would offer up is that we offer our educators grace during these next couple of weeks as we go through this continuing pandemic that has not ended, but has appeared again in different areas. Our teachers are expected to take on workloads that often have them staying up late at night, staying at the school later than usual. And so our educators, and I'm confident of this, they're doing everything that they can to get our students on track. They just need the support of our community.
Thank you. Now I would like to discuss the challenges our students are facing. And our question is for Dr. Dace and Mr. East. And I would like to start with Dr. Dace this time, okay? Data from the state assessment show that there were decreases in scores throughout the state. Though the scores weren't counted against the students, what type of data do you expect to see based on the strategies that are currently being implemented?
To be honest, Ms. Davis, I expect to see growth. Although we're predicting that growth may not be counted in the accountability model, definitely if teachers are teaching our babies, we expect a year of growth. And so the goal for all teachers is to grow students from where they are currently. Where they are currently is the key. Because of course I tell teachers and principals, only Jesus, shows us miracles, but definitely we're going to put forth all the effort and truly, as Ms. Jones said, grace to teachers. They are doing a lot. We're trying to help teachers as much as we can, but I just challenge teachers, just do what you can to make sure that students are learning and to make sure that students are growing. If you can do that, I think you should be well pleased with yourselves, educators, and we should be well pleased with those educators. So I do expect students, if you're at the bottom, you can't do anything but move to the top. And so I do expect students to grow, definitely.
Okay, Mr. East.
Thank you very much. Good points, Dr. Dace. In the Gulfport School District, every year we give a pretest on the skills that students should learn during that year. There's no doubt that our MAP scores have pointed out to Dr. Smith's point, some gaps that we need to accelerate. But one of the things that we do is we give a district common assessment. It is on a 3-week to 4.5-week cycle. So our pretest in that first DCA, they modeled how we did on that map back in the spring. But as we've moved through this first 9 weeks, we're seeing that uptick and we're seeing growth. And quite frankly, we're just below where we were the same time last year on the growth piece. So we really feel like for the majority of our students, as we continue with the DCA process, continue with the hard teaching, the being primarily responsible for every kid philosophy we have, that we'll see that growth regain. And right now, if we keep going at the rate we have on our first 3 DCAs, we should have caught up to where we were just before the pandemic. But there's a lot of time left, and there is, students working hard, teachers are working hard. So we do believe right now that we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you both for that. My next question is for Dr. Smith and Mrs. Jones. What does the data say about reading and math scores across the state? Are we seeing larger deficits in math or reading? Did y'all hear me?
I'm sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
You would think I would learn how to do this as much as we've done it in the past year. We did release the statewide data for the 2021 school year, and we did see that the COVID-19 pandemic did impact our student performance. For the first time since 2016, our student proficiency decreased in mathematics and in ELA. In 2019, our students reached an all-time high in proficiency in both math and ELA. So we saw about a 12% decrease in math and a 6.7% decrease in ELA proficiency. So, but this is on par with national trends. Nationally, we from national researchers, ELA was impacted about 30% nationally and about 50% for mathematics nationally. So Mississippi, although we did see a decrease, we recognize this and we have faith that our teachers are doing everything that they can, and our districts and schools and parents to support our kiddos and get them where they need to be.
Dr. Smith mentioned that nationwide, all states saw deficits in reading and math, and we know that this is true, especially when you think about the different learning models that might have been experienced by our educators as well as our students. We know some students were in person, some students did hybrid, then some students did virtual. So with all of those different learning models, we as a community know that we have to rally behind our teachers. Both of our superintendents mentioned the word growth. Growth is what we're expecting. As a second grade classroom teacher, I can tell you, growth will occur if teaching and learning is happening. I am confident that our educators are digging in, doing exactly what they need to do, not only just to get our students caught up, but to get them moving forward, and that's what we want.
Thank you both. Are you all able to see me and hear me clearly? Great. Great. So my next question is for Mr. East. We discussed earlier some of the programs you had implemented, but I'd like to share with our audience what interventions and remediation plans have been put in place in your district. You're muted.
I want to answer that, but I also want to make a good point. One of the things that we did in Mississippi was that we had a great participation rate on MAP. So we really know where children are across the state, and we know where those gaps are. You've got some states that didn't have near, I forget the number, but it's in the 90s on our participation rate. So moving forward. So the Gulfport School District, as far as interventions, we jumped in very quickly, have held 2, we call them summer camps, where we're trying to reach our students. We call our students that need accelerated to be blueberries, and we have worked with that group to make sure that we are accelerating their skills. And a good point that's been made, not necessarily trying to go back and fill gaps, but start where they are on the grade level they're in and work through those skills and tie in those skills from the past the best that we can. We also shifted to a flexible calendar this year. So we started in the middle of July. We just finished our 2-week intersession, and we had 800 of our 6,400 students participate in a week of intersession where they were able to work on skills early, not have to wait till next summer. Smaller groups. We had teachers, we had assistant principals, we had principals working with those smaller groups of children, again, to take the MAP scores that we had, and not the scores, but the achievement gaps that those point out, and work with those skills along with their grade level skills for this year. So those 2 things were impactful. We have in our system a boost program that we use in our school district for a long time. But the numbers in that boost program, we have increased a little bit, again, trying to close those gaps. That program is based on a lot of community folks coming in and working with our students, reading with our students. They spend 30 minutes a day with different students. So that program participation has increased a great deal. We also do a lot of after school tutoring and working with students anyway in our plan. But again, that number of students has increased, all because parents are reaching out, students are reaching out. We know that we've got to catch students up and accelerate them to where they need to be. So those things are the crux that we've done. Most of those are things we normally do in a school year. The summer camp is new for us. And of course, the intercession, this is our first year. So those are two new things that we've seen some great success on, especially at the end of intercession, when you're refocusing and assessing what those children learn, they are moving in the right direction.
That's great to hear. Now, Dr. Dace, I pose the same question to you. What interventions and remediation plans have been put in place in your district?
Well, somewhat similar. We started early this summer with our summer camps. We proposed summer school a little differently this past summer, but we provided remediation, but we also provided enrichment and other kind of summer camps. We had culinary arts and guitar, just different camps so that we can just engage students and get their minds in the right spaces. You know, we focus on teaching and learning virtually. So Greenville Public School District was pretty much 100% virtual for students in 4 through 12. We did about a month or so for pre-K through 3, and then we reverted back to virtual for, due to COVID. But being 100% virtual, our students were disconnected. And so what we did immediately in the summer, we provided face-to-face summer school opportunities. And they were well attended. Our remediation, our enrichment, and our regular summer camps. And so that was new to the district for this year. What we did early on when school started was to give diagnostics, just as Mr. East has said. But with those diagnostics, we were able to see that there were correlations between what they did on their state assessment and that initial diagnostic. And so that diagnostic data was used to immediately begin to create intervention and remediation plans for our students. Coupled with that diagnostic inside of a program we use, iReady built an individualized learning plan for each student. And so while we can pretty much focus on acceleration inside of our classrooms, that's where our teachers are teaching current grade level standards. But at the same time, I think Mr. E said it as well, you may have to reach back, and pull some of those deficit skills. But inside the iReady platform, they're consistently working on those deficit skills. We continued on with our benchmark assessments. We're progress monitoring with what we call snapshots, and we do those every 4.5 weeks. And so we're constantly looking at data, reflecting, trying to make changes as we move forward. And Ms. Jones mentioned it, teachers are doing that. Our teachers are getting acclimated because, again, teachers taught from the classroom and from home for an entire year. And so bringing those students back, dealing with, of course, behavior issues and things of that sort, because again, our children are, having to reacclimate with being inside brick and mortar buildings. So it's been a change because of the virtual, but we're jumping right in. Teachers have shared that they're a little frustrated, but we're trying to reach out and help them as much as possible. But we're doing what we need to do to improve student outcomes. So we'll stay on that track. At the high school, I just have to mention, because we're so creative there, my principal, we did move from a 7-period schedule to an 8-period schedule, whereby it's a modified block, so to speak. We offer only 3 to 4 classes just to help with class load for our students Monday through Thursday. But on Friday, it's kind of used as our reteaching, recovery day. Students attend all 8 classes. So it's just a different take, a different spin on the modified block schedule, trying to reach children during the regular school day, because we have not, pre-COVID, our attendance for our after school programs has been low. And so we're starting up right now as a dry run, and we'll continue with after school in the spring. Doing lots of things. Thank you.
Thank you. You are leading me right to my next question, which is, what is being done to address student burnout? They have their classes, before school programs, after school programs, intercession. And so many are feeling overwhelmed and tired. So how do we keep them motivated and engaged? And I would like to hear from any panelists who would like to go and answer that for us.
I'll get us started off. One thing that I would like to offer up is that as we're engaging with our students, for us to be very careful how we use the terms learning loss or disrupted learning or anything with a negative impact. What we want to do is to encourage our students to keep moving forward, to keep showing growth, and to just continue to give them the support. During the pandemic, as educators, we are unaware of exactly what our students encounter on a day-to-day basis at home. School should be a safe place for them, and as educators, that's what we should focus on, giving them the support that they need.
Anybody else?
Let me weigh in on that if you don't mind. One of the things that we do know is that in our 6 through 12 programs, our extracurricular activities this year are more important than ever. They make, there's more time involved, but that face-to-face in an environment where almost 300 band students are able to talk and meet and do that kind of thing. In our elementary world, the fact that we were back totally face-to-face, we gave choice last year. And so the majority of our students were face-to-face, but about a third were virtual. The camaraderie of coming back together has been far more important than the few social emotional issues that we are having to deal with. Dr. Dace pointed that out. So that has helped us in the elementary world. But again, we started the flexible schedule, the intercession hit. And so those students that were there, they worked that week. We did some enrichment camps as well. And so we had our normal sports camps and enrichment camps going on, but there was a refreshing time also where parents were able to be with their children, took that time off. And the beauty of it all was, and even for teachers, when we came back to school after intercession, that first 3 or 4 days was just like the normal 3 or 4 days of a school year. You have that extra energy, you have that extra desire to be back together. So those things combined with just the fact that students wanted to be together and see each other and fist bump or whatever they do has helped us tremendously with that piece of issue moving forward. So I'm not going to say we did anything special other than the intercession helping out, but the students have driven themselves to know we are admirals, so to speak, in Gulfport, and we got to take care of each other, which is the way we've always been. And it was a joy to see back on campus and the groups talking and working with each other. And quite frankly, I hadn't seen you in a year, so it was good to see you other than a Zoom picture or whatever the case may be. And y'all know that's different. It's different than sitting across the lunch table and being able to talk about the Friday night date or the Friday night football game or whatever the case may be. So it was very refreshing for us to start this year and have everybody on campus.
Okay, thank you for those responses. So now I'd like to pivot to the conversation about teachers. And I'd like to hear from Mrs. Jones first, and would love for Dr. Dace and Mr. East to chime in as well. Teachers have been very resilient during the challenges that COVID-19 presented. What is being done to ensure they feel supported from an academic perspective and a social emotional perspective?
I know you use the word resilient, and that's exactly what we would say for our educators. Overnight, they had to go from in-person learning to different models such as hybrid, and then of course virtual. So some things that I've been talking with educators across the state about is taking care of themselves as well as taking care of the students in their classrooms. Our teachers have come back, most of them are doing in-person learning. And so some of the things we want to make sure is that our administrators, our parents, as well as the community is providing the support to educators that they need, encouraging them to keep going, encouraging them to give it their all, and just sharing good things about education instead of going to your social media posts such as Facebook and share negative things about our educators. Our educators have had a tough 2 years, and so we must do whatever we need to do to support them.
Okay. Dr. Dace and Mr. East.
I'll weigh in on that too. There is no doubt that when this pandemic began that all of us in education, from administrators to teacher assistants to parents, we wore ourselves very thin trying to catch up and learn to do things that we needed to do. Gulfport School District had a very good outline plan of getting it. All the equipment was out, the hotspots were out. But the idea that you were counting on parents to help, we learned so much. The biggest thing we learned is you can't do face-to-face and you can't do virtual at the same time. You really have to designate a virtual teacher to make that work. And we learned very quickly that even though our plan was good, it was far from perfect. And that's why we have some of these gaps we've got to catch up. Parents were tired. But again, as we worked through it and made adjustments, parent input, and trying to figure out how to do that, getting back to face-to-face, then that momentum began to catch on. And parents that they have to work. And so those students have to be back in our building face-to-face. And that kind of thing helped us to be successful. And I don't want to paint a total flowery picture either. We've had to continue to work. But then again, helping us was that 2-week intercession where you have a teacher call you from Disney World and say, there's only 10 people in line, the most important ride. They came back refreshed too. Even those that worked with the smaller groups in our district, they were loving seeing those kids learn. And we're not there yet. We can say that we're all socially and emotionally healthy as we were before the pandemic. But I think that anybody that says they're there, they probably need to look in the mirror and say, maybe not. But we're putting that base face forward. And I hate to say it this way, guys, I'd rather be dealing with a hurricane than this. Hurricanes have an end. You can see it. This changes everywhere. Now, look, I'm not wishing a hurricane on the Gulf Coast or anything, but it's a different type of grit and resilience. This has caused us to dig much deeper. Teachers are helping each other. Teachers are working with each other. Administration is out in buildings like we normally do, but it's just trying to keep that camaraderie built, because at the end of the day, we're primarily responsible for the education of these children. So that culture keeps permeating, if you will, the whole district to get us through this.
Okay. Dr. Smith.
I agree.
Oh, you want
with Mr. Yeah, let me piggyback on what he just said.
Sure.
I totally agree that this has been a traumatic experience. And so we are seeing children and teachers and parents with PTSD, with parents who are saying, oh my God, if I ever see another Zoom call again, I may throw a computer across the room. So this is, we have to operate with a sense of grace and mercy, but still maintain our high expectations for student outcomes. So I'm sorry, I just had to piggyback off of what
no
they
worries.
said.
My next question is in fact for you. Teachers are leaving the teaching profession in droves. What is being done to attract them and to retain them? And are provisionally licensed teachers a help or a hindrance?
Well, the MDE's role is to provide resources. So we are encouraging districts across the state to use many different strategies to attract and retain teachers, from providing teachers with financial incentives, using some of the federal funding that we have received from the federal government. Mississippi has received some of the largest allocations of federal funds in its history, in the history of federal funding. And so we're encouraging them to use that in creative ways. We are asking districts to look at providing novice teachers with coaches or mentoring supports. And your second question, whether or not provisionally licensed teachers are helping or hindering, I don't think a provisionally licensed teacher could hinder what we're doing. Is somebody in the classroom teaching our kids? As long as we are providing that provisional teacher with support via coaching, via professional learning, and helping them understand the content, then we have somebody in front of our babies who, they're providing them with instruction. So that to me could never be a hindrance. The only time that I could see it as a hindrance is if we were not supporting them. If we just dropped them in the classroom and said, hey, go about teaching, that would be the only way that I'd see a hindrance in that.
Okay, thank you for that. And Mrs. Jones, this is a twofold question. What is the most common complaint you're hearing from teachers throughout the pandemic? And what services are being offered to teachers through MAE?
Thank you very much for that two-part question. One thing that I'm hearing from our educators across the state is that they simply don't have enough time to get everything done. It seems as if more things are being loaded on their plates and there aren't enough hours in the day. So as I travel around and I talk to teachers in different districts, they're asking for the gift of time, if you will. One thing at MAE that we're doing is that we're offering virtual options for our educators that may need CEU credits. We're also offering social emotional learning opportunities for our educators to engage in. In the months of October and November, we've had a counselor that was available that performed online sessions with our educators on social and emotional well-being. So that has been very beneficial to our educators across the state. And also, most importantly, just offering a listening ear to them as they're stressing out and sharing with us their hardships, just being there to support them in that.
Okay, thank you. We know teachers are a very important, important part of the puzzle. And so we know that teachers and students cannot be successful without parents. And so now we'd like to ask questions about parents. And my first question is, and this is open to all, how have learning gaps impacted the parent-school and parent-teacher relationships? What are you seeing? More input, more help, more stress from the parent? What does it look like?
I'll take the lead on that one, Dr. Davis, just to kind of, again, we're fortunate we have some pretty good parent input in our schools. We do a lot of home visits with our parents we can talk about later, but there is definitely an emotional stress, if you will, on teachers and parents because they want their children to have a good, safe environment, a learning environment. And I think we touched on it earlier, even the children coming back, that they're looking at each other face to face. There's a little social emotional issues that we're dealing with that normally would not deal with. But because of being virtual and being masked and being distanced and people staying at home, there's a little relearning of each other that we're having to do. And for the most part, I think there's a little frustration, but for the most part, at the end of the day, teachers and parents, the first question we have to ask, and we are asking and parents are asking, what's best for the children? And how do we understand that the world, the home environment, the world environment is different as we go through this pandemic, and we've got to take that into account. But the same thing that Dr. Smith said, we've got to keep the high standards for our kids in Mississippi. We have worked too hard as a state, students, parents, and teachers to improve academically like we have. And though we've gone backwards a little bit, we didn't cause that. It was given to us. We have to play there's an old joke, sometimes playing the cards you have the right way is better than having the best kind of cards on the table. So we're trying to play the hand we're dealt to get through it. Communication is the key. And I'm gonna tell you, from my role, listening is more important right now than talking. Parents will want to let it out. They just want somebody to listen to. Dr. Jones said the same thing. Teachers just need somebody to listen to. So what I'm seeing is trying to work that issue out with parents is, let's do some listening, let's do some communication. Let's let the school district go to the homes like we do it anyway, but more than ever before, so parents feel like we have that good communication going. And again, not perfect. We've got some things we have to work out in that emotional development piece.
Okay. Would anyone else?
I would add more. As a parent of a first grader and an eighth grader, I found myself paying attention to the communication that has been coming home. My son, he's an athlete. I have to stay on top of him, ensuring that he's doing his work. Whereas my first grader, she's eager to get her homework completed. So just watching those lines of communication that is coming home and just being a support to the teacher in the classroom. Especially when items are coming that need to be reviewed, thinking about our students who miss some time away from school, that's very important. I've also heard from parents as I've traveled across the state that they are really enjoying being able to now go back into the schools for band concerts, football games, things of that nature. So just keeping those lines of communication open are very, very important to getting us back to where we need to be.
And I'll add, Ms. Davis, and I'll add that communication is definitely key. What we've heard thus far is that parents really feel like the teachers and administrators are communicating with them. And we use a platform called School Status. And teachers use it, administrators use it, and we are definitely communicating. I think it's all in what what you're aware of, so that parents can help. And I say another thing that we've done in the district is the board approved us hiring a COVID-19 parent liaison. So we're transitioning to all parent liaisons working inside of our school buildings, because we know that without the support of the parents and the community, that the schools, will not be successful. So to help better engage the parents, make sure they're in the know, provide more opportunities for parents to, come inside those buildings or be virtual. And we're doing a combination of our virtual meetings and face-to-face meetings. And so I just think opportunities to reward and recognize our students, that's bringing, parents into our buildings, as well as bringing parents, to our virtual conversations. And so I think communication is definitely key. And so that's, we're trying to do a better job with that as we move forward.
May I add, I think communication with the relationship building, it's imperative that you pair the two. Communication without relationship is talking to or talking at. A relationship is a two-way conversation, and it's listening, receiving, and responding to what you hear. And so building those relationships within the classroom, for the teachers, as well as your community relationships, is going to be key to seeing any school district succeed.
Okay. So what are some suggestions on things that parents can do to help their children improve academically, socially, and emotionally?
I want to start off again, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Best thing an elementary school parent can do is call into bed at night and read them a book, and then have the child read that book to you. You're working on the parent relationship with the child. You're working on reading. You're doing those things. The best thing that a middle school parent can do, and we all know, we were all there, that's those tough 3 years in life, is listen, talk to, and again, Dr. Smith has hit the nail on the head. Work on that relationship with the school and the teachers, and it's a two-way street. And for the high school students, let them be high schoolers. Let them get out there and do what they need to do. But so, and again, homework time, all that's unspoken. It's what you need to do. But we really need to just let children grow up in a time that's been very difficult, especially the last 18 months.
And we as educators, our first instinct is to help, right? But children need to struggle productively. They need productive struggle. They need to feel a little bit of angst as they work through something, so that they can feel the glow when they succeed with it. So let them feel it a little bit, but be there as a support for them. So like the street said, let those high schoolers be high schoolers. They need to feel that and be empowered to be independent.
Okay.
I would like to add being available when our students come home, being available to them, showing up to their performances, showing up to their high school games, elementary tournaments. Those things are important to our students.
Right. And I'll just last agree with everyone and just say key is listening, truly listening. I have an adult child, and sometimes I have to pause and I have to make sure that I'm listening to her. And so give them the time that they need. They may have to, let some pressure off, or just let you hear the concerns that they're having, the problem that they had for that day. At the elementary, of course, certainly read to them. We are focusing a lot on reading and making sure that's not an issue as they matriculate through high school. But definitely need to be a listening ear and continue to build those relationships. When students see that there's a relationship between their parents and the teachers, they build better relationships. So that's certainly what needs to happen.
Awesome answers.
The MPE also has resources available for parents. Epic Mississippi is an app you can download, and it will send you a an activity that you could do with your kiddo. It'll send you some social and emotional conversation starters. It's a wonderful app developed by one of our literacy coaches, as a matter of fact, and it's free. So it's a phenomenal resource.
Okay. Thank you all for those suggestions. So tonight we've talked a lot about data. There are programs and services in place for teachers, students, and parents. In this panel, their prospective institutions in all school districts are planning, and they're being more intentional about accelerating learning and closing gaps for our students. So my final question to each of you is, can students catch up? Can the gaps be closed? And I'd like to start with our superintendents, this time Dr. Dace first.
Of course, you know my answer to that question is yes. But certainly it kind of depends on how you define catch up. Catch up means, to me, it means that students are comfortable with where they are. They feel like they are learning and they are achieving. Certainly, I would like to say those students who were already, a grade level or so behind may not be at the proficiency mark that some might, expect. But if they're growing and if they're learning, I would say they're moving in the right direction. But doing what it takes to make sure that they're catching up, we just use the phrase, we plan, we do, we study, and we act. And we just repeat that process. We're going to make plans for our students. We're going to look at the data. We're going to look at the assessment with a progress monitor, do all the things that come with schooling. Once you plan that out, then you actually do it. After you do it, then you look at the results. You study the results. Is this working? If it's not working, you go back. You have to be flexible and be willing to make those necessary changes. And once you make those changes, you act and you start it all over again. So definitely, I say children can catch up. It's not only the children that need to catch up, but our educators as well. And so they're finding their way. We are helping them along the way with the resources for educators, professional development, and things of that sort to help them help our children. And so I feel comfortable that if everyone remains positive, if everyone supports in the way that they can, that certainly children can catch up.
Okay. Mr. East, you're muted.
I'm going to start off by saying this. Many times in the adult world, we're all in this tizzy and everything's going great. We're trying to not going well. And we're trying to figure out what's going on. And the kids are laughing at us. There's no doubt the students can catch up and do what they need to do. And I also want to draw on something that Dr. Smith said. John Dewey, I said it this way: failure is instructive. So how much have teachers learned? How much have students learned? There is no doubt that we will work hard, students will work hard, and students will catch up. And again, I'm going to close with how I started. We're all worried about it, and a lot of students back there are figuring this out for themselves and growing and know that they need to move forward and do what they've got to do to be successful and productive members of society.
Thank you. Dr. Smith or Mrs. Jones?
Absolutely, our students can. We're all in this together. We just simply need to offer support and grace to our educators who are out there on the field. Another thing, we need to foster those relationships with our parents, school, and community, make sure that pipeline is crystal clear and that we're all working together. We have the resources and the best and brightest educators here in the state. Just remember, Maslow before Bloom, we're in this together. We can get it done. We have the power to do so.
Right. And Dr. Smith?
Phenomenal. I am so proud to be on the panel with these phenomenal educators. You guys are inspirational. And I, as a state leader, and Dr. Wright, feels that this year establishes a new baseline for statewide assessment. So we're just starting a new baseline. So as we recover from this pandemic, Mississippi, I am sure, will make progress just as rapidly as we did before, because we, as Ms. Jones said, we have some of the brightest people in schools teaching. Our parents are concerned, our children, our students, are just as bright, if not more, because they're Mississippians, than any other kids across the nation, right? They can do it. And we have faith in them. We have faith in what our districts are doing.
Okay. I appreciate each and every one of you for joining us tonight and participating in this dynamic conversation and an informative conversation. So, Mrs. Jones, as the president of MAE, how can teachers get more information about the services and benefits offered by MAE?
Thank you so much for having me tonight. Just simply going on to our website, maetoday.org, and visiting our different social media handles. We'll be in a school district near you soon. We have opened up, started traveling again. We know we have Read Across America coming up this March. I can't wait to jump into a classroom near you soon and read to your students. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Dr. Smith, we talked a lot about data. Can you please share with us where we can find this information so we can look at it more carefully and answer some questions that may not have been addressed tonight?
Certainly. You can access the current Mississippi data at mdek12.org. And if you look under the news tab, we have some current news releases that sort of unpack the statewide assessment results and the showing the learning gaps and the impact of COVID. I also want to encourage anyone who's interested to visit our strongreadersms.com page. Strongreadersms.com has a plethora of activities, kindergarten, pre-K, to grade 3, as well as those links to like EPIC and MPB, are some of our partners in our educational work.
Again, thank you all for joining us tonight. To the panelists and to the audience members, we appreciate you being with us and sharing this conversation. And we appreciate all of the information that you guys shared that's so helpful. And so to each of you, I'd like to say thank you again and good night.